Welcome to Habeas Treasures, where I try to decipher this book, There's Treasure Inside by Jon Collins-Black, in order to find one of the 5 hidden treasures. On today's episode, I'm going to continue my breakdown of the Pokemon box and discuss the part of the story where the Froakie and Greninja examine the Pokemon card in the treasure and why I think this may connect to where locals turn up from time to time. Let's begin! The part of the Pokemon box story that has always intrigued me is when the Froakie returns with the Greninja and JCB stops his hike to show them 2 treasure items. The first is the Nitsuki frog with the red ruby eyes. The second is one of the 2 Pokemon cards that are shown on the first page of the chapter. Interestingly, JCB doesn't tell us which of the 2 cards he shows them. Here, let's read that part of the story now. I then reached in and pulled out one of the Pokemon trading cards in our treasure. They gasped with surprise. Very impressive, they exclaimed. They examined it closely for a while, nodding with approval. Now, when I stepped back and thought about this passage for a while, it seemed like in the last sentence, JCB is being very specific in describing the behavior of the 2 Pokemon with the line, they examined it closely for a while, nodding with approval. This led me to the conclusion that the 2 Pokemon are acting just like the ratings agency that evaluates and grades cards, or more specifically, like a collector who examines the card closely and agrees with the rating the agency gave to the card. But which card? Well, if the rating on the card is the clue, then I'm not sure it really matters since one rating is mint and the other is gem mint. Both cards, some kind of mint. Now, if mint is the clue, then it could relate to a few things, most notably the mint plant and the U.S. mint where coins are struck. Now, since this is a treasure hunt and there are a bunch of U.S. coins in the treasure, I'm leaning more towards the U.S. mint being the clue. What's also interesting is in the very next line of the Pokemon box story, it reads, "In what became a stroke of fortune, the Greninja informed me he knew every corner of the area." Now, for a while, I've thought that the Greninja and the stroke of fortune phrase could be a golf reference, especially since when the Greninja arrives, JCB hears a stick snapping, and a slang term for golf clubs, sticks, and even the commemorative coin in the Pokemon box looks a lot like a golf flag. But returning to the US mint idea, the phrase, "in what became a stroke of fortune," could also refer to how coins are struck at the mint. And obviously, the mint creates millions of coins a year, and some of them go on to become worth a fortune. So this led me to research the different branches of the U.S. Mint around the country. Turns out, there are 3 branches that I think reasonably fit inside the treasure search area. They are the Charlotte Mint in North Carolina, the Dahlonega Mint in Georgia, and the New Orleans Mint in Louisiana. All 3 of these mints were created by the Mint Act of 1835. None are in operation today. Their buildings have been repurposed. The Charlotte Mint is now an art museum. The Dahlonega Mint is now part of the University of North Georgia's campus. And the New Orleans Mint is also a museum that now tells the story of the mint and also the history of jazz in the city. So at this point, I started looking for any other U.S. mint or coin-related connections in the story. One that I found is the author's mention of eagles multiple times in the story. At one point he writes, "I witnessed my first American eagle soaring through the sky." Then later in the story he writes, "The forest opened up, an eagle greeted us from high above." I think the first mention could be a connection to the American eagle coins. The mints produced many different denominations of American eagle coins during the 18 and 1900s. It appears as though many of the coins shown in the treasure picture have the famous Walking Liberty St. Gaudens Augustus-inspired design, or more precisely, the St. Gaudens Double Eagle $20 gold piece design that revolutionized U.S. coins in the early 1900s. So this got me thinking, why did JCB include these various coins in the treasure? I mean, he doesn't highlight them the way he does the other treasure items in the book. Maybe they were just included to make the treasure picture look better? Or maybe he deliberately doesn't mention them because they are a clue. Could this be some classic treasure hunt creator misdirection? Okay, so I know what you must be thinking. Yo, HT, how does the U.S. Mint stuff connect to the place where locals turn up from time to time? Great question. Well, let's read that passage now. The Greninja also introduced me to a wise golem who happened to have a great idea about where we could hide our treasure. We circled back. We left the box not far from a place where locals turn up from time to time. The line we circle back could relate to the New Orleans Mint that I mentioned earlier, since all the coins struck there had an O printed on the reverse side. This would be a pretty clever way of giving a clue that leads us to the New Orleans Mint. And then we get to the line, we left the box not far from a place where locals turn up from time to time. This is obviously an important line, maybe the most important line in the entire hunt, because it gives a direct indication of where the box is hidden. Because of this, my belief is that JCB probably took his time and put a lot of thought into how he worded this line. But what could it mean? Well, I've seen lots of people speculate that it could be a trailhead or a fishing hole or an outdoor concert venue, basically anywhere where locals get together. My interpretation, a bit different. I think it's possible that since this is such a crucial line in the story, that JCB may have taken the time to craft this line more like a riddle. And in classic riddles, nothing is as it initially seems. To solve a riddle, you have to think a little bit more abstractly. So in this case, I'm reminded of the old phrase, a bad penny always turns up. This phrase has been around since medieval times. Basically, in the old days, when coins were made out of precious metals, people would clip a portion of the coin, which made the coin less valuable. If a merchant was tricked into receiving a bad penny, they would quickly try to spend it to pass the loss on to someone else. Because everyone kept trying to get rid of it, the coin stubbornly kept circulating back into the economy. So the bad coin kept turning up. In our case, the locals that turn up could be the bad coins that get returned to the mint to be taken out of circulation. The reason they could be considered locals is because they were originally minted at the same place where they are turning back up. And the phrase from time to time could relate to the date stamped on the coins or the simple fact that most coins last about 30 years before getting taken out of circulation. Now, who knows if this is the correct solution? After all, the U.S. Mint locations aren't great places to hide a treasure since they are located in urban areas. However, JCB does give himself some options by writing that the box was hidden not far from a place where locals turn up from time to time. The phrase "not far" provides a bit of wiggle room. And I'll leave you with one last thought. JCB finishes the Pokemon box story discussing the one surviving picture from his journey to hide the treasure. He writes, "Oddly, only one picture was preserved well enough to make any sense out of it." The phrase, "to make any sense out of it," sounds a lot like what a mint does. They make coins more sense. So maybe, since two of the U.S. mints in the search area are now museums, a picture or a painting in one of the museums could be what Jon is showing us in the purple image at the end of the chapter. A picture that he took of a picture. This could explain why he writes that he doesn't remember taking this picture, and maybe, just maybe, if we can find that original picture, it will reveal the place where the treasure is hidden. Anyway, that's all I've got for today's video, and in the words of legendary top 40 treasure hunter Casey Kasem, keep your boots on the ground and keep reaching for those stars.